Abusiafo matena sibio aha Ghanatube model snowy na ensem ekoso ewo ye manga na mu pa megide se opese utie na ohun nia ekoso ewo Ghana mu abusiafo makwakoboaboa ensem bi ano ye nkotie ensem no ye ba na matoaso ediamo.
The final Supreme Court Justice nominee, Justice Petitioner is the 7th. Now, he takes his turn before the Appointments Committee of Parliament tomorrow after a brief suspension of the exercise. Now, we have the backstory for you because he was scheduled to be vetted from what we understood yesterday. But then again, that did not happen. Parliament Appointment Committee is expected to, all things being equal, vet Justice Petitioner tomorrow after his initial schedule was postponed. Now, the suspension of the judge's vetting, from what we're gathering, was reportedly due to a petition against him sent to the committee alleging bias, amongst other things. Now, we've got a copy of this petition and some detail for you, and that's what we're going to get into it shortly. My colleague Dennis Poberi Wadam Esquire is with me in the studio. We're going to get into it shortly, and for you to understand why this last vetting of the Supreme Court nominee did not take place. Dennis, it's good to have you. So
always a pleasure.
Let's get into it. You have a copy?
Yes, we have seen a copy of that particular petition.
What does it say?
Well, so it's claims made by the petitioner in this particular matter, who is in the person of one Anthony Kobna Rao. He says he's a former member of parliament in Germany.
Germany?
Yes, actually German, but he has he's of Ghanaian origin.
Right.
Yes, and his contention is that he's had some engagements with the judge in question at the High Court when he was a High Court judge, and that the way he was treated smacks of arrogance and that he was biased in that. He goes ahead to attach a copy of said judgment and makes reference to certain words that were used which in his view were insulting and an attack on him as an elderly person.
Right.
So he says he's 67 years
right.
and that he's older than the judge, and that the words that were used by the judge were not appropriate. We'll go deep, a bit further into that. But let's just look at how he characterized, the claims that he's making against the judge, for which reason he says that the judge should not be appointed to the Supreme Court. One is the claim that the judge has insulted and attacked him during a hearing. We'll go into that and look at what the said judgment says, describing him as a so-called messiah, international human rights activist. So-called messiah, international human rights activist. When we go into the judgment, you see the context in which this messiah was used and how he interprets this to mean that it was an attack and an insult on him. He also says that the judge, yes, generally, he says in respect of that, the judge is biased, that he's arrogant, that he's power drunk, and that the judge is a supporter of corruption and human rights abuse. That also stems from the kind of action that he put before the court and how the verdict turned out.
Right.
He also continues to say that the judge has a Canadian background, which is indeed true, because Justice Akabuafo trained in Canada before coming to Ghana to join the High Court, risen through the ranks. Now he's at the Court of Appeal, a nominee to the Supreme Court now. He says that by virtue of his background, he did not have the experience of the Ghanaian culture. And this he linked to what he says is disrespect towards him being an elderly person.
I see.
He also says that the judge refused to award him interest on his judgment. So in that particular matter that he's talking about, it went in his favor. But his contention is that it had to do with some monies that were owed him. That even though the judgment went in his favor, the judge did not give him interest.
On the said judgment? On
the said judgment. So based on this, he thinks that he does not qualify to be on the bench of the Supreme Court. But for this petition, we understand the justice would have been vetted together with his colleagues who had theirs earlier in the week. But unfortunately for this had to be looked at. We understand this has been taken off the way and he will be vetted tomorrow. But let's look at some excerpts from the said judgment that he talked about. Now, this is a matter that had to do with this person having a company, and this company was doing business with the DVLA.
Right.
It so happened that the DVLA owed him some money for which he brought this particular action. So as part of the documents that he put in evidence, there was one that was a letter in which he said a lot of things, including the fact that some people sat in their offices and watched on for corruption to fester in the DVLA office. He also goes on to say that it had to do with the stamping embossment of number plates,
right,
which his company was doing for Sunyani, Tamale, and Wa.
Okay.
But his contention was that he had come from Germany. He does a better job than all those who are doing the job in the other regions, and that they do shoddy works, and all the drivers have been complaining, and because they do not have options, they still go on to those people. And he makes the argument that it's not a good job they are doing. He does it better.
I see.
And that they should even give all the other regions to him. He would do it.
Interesting.
But he put it in a language that the judge thought that he needed to address it as a final thing in the judgment.
Okay.
So, having gone through the analysis of the substantive issues in the suits, the judge now says that, okay, finally, let me deal with this particular...
So this is Justice Akabuafo's...
Yes, Justice Akabuafo, yes.
...judgment on this?
Yes.
Okay.
He says that now let me deal with this particular exhibit because in his view, it was inappropriate.
Okay.
Now let's look at what the judge says in respect of that exhibit. And we have just reproduced the exact portions of the judgment, which is now complained of by this person. He says that finally, before I bring the curtains down, I wish to comment on the plaintiff's exhibit F, which the witness and the author, Mr. Abebrese Rao, referred to as a letter of protest. I note that in the said letter dated 15 January 2017, the plaintiff's director made some startling allegations against everyone involved in the embossment business and virtually accused everyone of being corrupt except his company. Mind you, as I was explaining, his allegation in that letter was that all the other companies were doing shoddy work, yet drivers had no option than to go to them, and that he could even do a better job if they gave him that contract. So that's what the judge is addressing, that he made allegations against everyone involved in the embossment business and virtually accused everyone of being corrupt except his company. He wrote that all the embossers are doing shoddy work and are dangerous and a threat to the state. Those were his words. And that's how come you see that the judge also put them in inverted commas to address that. He goes on to say that I have chosen to restate part of the 3-page letter. So when you read the entire judgment, he actually went to pick portions of this letter, which he refers to, that I have found it troubling and highly unacceptable that the plaintiff company chose to throw everyone involved in the embossment business under the bus and accused everyone in the business it only joined over 2 years ago of corruption and criminality without any scintilla of proof. To my mind, the plaintiff's director, who claims to be a German human rights activist, engaged in a fictional and selfish narrative for his own gain and benefits by claiming to be the messiah of Ghanaian drivers. Do you see the word messiah there?
Yes.
So this is exactly the word
context in which that messiah was used.
And this is the point where this petitioner now complains that he insulted him and attacked him and used words like messiah to describe him, which he finds disrespectful.
Right.
He says that it is high time the people of Mr. Abebrese Rao's nature learn that it is inappropriate to accuse public servants and other citizens of criminality and corruption without any proof, and at the same time solicit for jobs people are already assigned and engaged in under the guise that they have foreign expertise and are motivated by altruism. The public space and the courts are not forum for self-serving sensationalism and aggrandizement. Therefore, Mr. Abebrese Rao and his like should spare Ghanaians of such self-glorified epistles. So this was how the judge then at the High Court addressed that specific exhibit, which was a letter that Mr. Abebrese himself had written to protest some adjustments that were done to, I think, some monies.
Yeah.
So this, he says, it was disrespectful to him. It was an attack on him, and that it was an insult to him, for which he put it before the appointments committee to look into. And what he was actually demanding is that the judge in question does not qualify to be on the bench of the Supreme Court because of these things that I have listed, including this particular matter. I mean, he goes on to talk about the promotion or the appointment of the judge from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, and now from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, which he says occurred under different governments, and he finds a problem with that as well.
Interesting.
But we are now learning, like I said, that that petition has been dismissed, so the way has now been cleared for Justice Akabuafo to take his stand tomorrow before the Appointments Committee to go through the process as expected. Alfred.
And this is one that we're going to bring you live here on TV3 and also on 3FM 92.7. So make a date and follow the vetting every step of the way.
Yo ya hakotie eye insem no aba. Ebusuafo metwen wo e comment section. Fa comment ni ewu kimi na mejebre akenkan ni nyina e de ama ofefefe ansa na mesori mo so anase minu medi enkan me kai se Ghanatube suni ensama ekoti eba ewo omanga ne mu eno ena yede so ebusuafo se o hwe me first time ya subscribe na fa won sa enya notification bell no so se na be a insem no ye lituma wenya ne intem pass memo we free se over like ye videos din na na so wasan share amensans ye say sharing is caring aha and I'm doing easy.